money is plentiful. I was sharing with Kevin last night in my sister's garage. I haven't bought a house here yet. In my sister's garage, I have a car sitting there that is about 11 years old. It's a little sports car. It's something, I like cars. I go to car shows and things like that. Some 11, 12 years ago, I don't know, I got a call from somebody and they tell me, why don't you go down to that Honda dealer and look at that car you've been talking about? And I went down there and I said, wow, you know, this is, I got to take it for a drive. Right? I like cars. Is that okay? I like cars. Some of you fish. I like cars. I drove out of there with that car that day. The next day, this person went in and wrote a check for that car and paid cash for it. There's no shortage of money. To a child of God, it is impossible to run short of money. If you just build that relationship with God, follow His vision, do what He tells you to do. Folks, I'm telling you, I've been to where I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together, and I've been to where I could have bought this building and paid cash for it. I have no idea what this building's worth. I've had people to come and lay things at my feet. And one time I had a church that was using our building and they began to abuse it. And I went to them and I told them, you're going to have to move. You've got to find someplace else. But I'm not going to push you out. I'm going to give you 3 months. And I said to them, Tim, now, at the end of that 3 months, if you haven't found a place, I'll give you 3 more months. Now, that's big advice, right? I mean, you can't fault that. Well, about a month or so had gone by, and all of a sudden one day, all their deacons show up at my church, and they said, Pastor, we haven't blessed you. We just want to bless you. They gave me an envelope stuffed with money. I have no idea how much money was in it. There was a little Indian girl there that day from India, and there was a missionary staying in her home. I will not be bribed by money. And he said, Pastor, we just want to give this to you. And I said, wow, thank you very much. And I turned around and I said, Jasmine, give this to that missionary in your home. Money is plentiful to God's people. We buy into the wrong things sometimes. We talk about we don't have this, we don't have that. We're always in lack. We're suffering with that. It does not matter what you have or what you don't have. You take what little bit you have and you begin to use it for God. And He will give you everything that you need when you are fulfilling His vision. In that church of 4 people, after a few years, I was standing up one morning and I was just wondering. The church was packed out. We couldn't get people in the building. Someone would come in and I'd have to ask some people to scoot over or something. Things like there was no more parking. And I asked the people one time, I said, I just want to ask you a question. How many of you have prospered since you've been a part of this church? Everybody raised their hand. That had been there any period of time. Everybody raised their hand. Let me tell you why that is. The Ark of the Covenant had been stolen. The Philistines had taken it in battle. They thought they were going to do great. They thought, wow, this is the secret to Israel's success in battle and everything. We're going to take the covenant. Well, it was Israel's success. But it sure was a curse to them. And so after a while, when all these people are sick and dying and everything, they're just having more problems, they decide to get rid of that thing and they give it back to Israel. David gets it. And they're taking it back home, and they got it on a cart, and it's shaking, and Uriah, I believe, was reached out to try to steady it, and he dies, and David says, wow, we're doing this wrong. Let's just store this thing somewhere until we can find out. They took it over to the house of a man by the name of Obed-Edom. I'm part Jewish. I think Obed is in my line somewhere. They took it to a man by the name of Obed-Edom. They took it over there and they said, Obed, we've got to leave this thing here. David told us to bring it here. And he said, don't bring that thing here. I've got kids. I heard what happened to that man. Don't bring that near me. He said, oh, David, you don't have, Obed, you don't have a choice. David told us to bring it here. So Obed says, okay, put it out there in the barn and put something over it so my kids won't see it. I don't want any of my kids getting killed. They take that thing. Do you know what the ark represented? The presence of God.
Yes. Yes.
They put that thing out there. Now, there's a little bit of ad-lib here, right? I mean, you got your imagination. You can imagine they put it on the front porch. It doesn't matter. Anyway, they put that thing on there. They covered with the tarp. Everything Obed had prospered.
Yes. Yeah.
His kids could go out there and play in the barn and roll all over that thing. Didn't bother them in the least. They could play in the presence of God. It didn't bother anything. His cattle grew. He had so much money. Everything he had. His crops were coming in tenfold of what they had. Everything was prospered. They come back to get the ark, and Obed said, "What ark?" Would that really work? Yeah. I went to a church of 4 people. I sought God until His presence was there in everything that we did, in every service we had. I made a commitment to follow the vision that God had given me, and nothing else really mattered but following that vision. I never begged for money. I never had a yard sale. I never sold a hot dog. I never sold a donut. I never did anything but seek God. And I want to tell you, that place, it exploded. And it exploded with finance. And it exploded with people. Why? Because the presence of God is there. If you will bring the presence of God into this church, you will not be able to accommodate the people.
Amen.
That church went from one service of 4 people to having 5 and 6 services on the weekend. Simply because we sought God and brought God in there. That's when Kevin and I began to work together. Kevin came shortly after that, and Kevin and I began to pray together, and the church grew exponentially. I'm telling you, men, if you will get together and you will put aside your differences and you will come together and realize that the most important thing is that this church would accomplish the vision of God, and that it would somehow affect the people in this community, and that the number one goal of the Father is to reach people in this Glade Spring community.
Amen.
Amen.
In whatever county this is this Washington County?
Yes.
In Washington County. You will not be able to accommodate. When you go from a church of 4 people that can hardly pay the light bill, and you have to make arrangements with the bank to where you can lock up your thing and make deposits at night and stuff like that, and you're taking in $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 in an offering, something has to cause that. I'm no more talented than any other pastor anywhere. I don't think that I'm a very good speaker. I don't find people just lining up wanting to be friends with me. I'm a very quiet individual. I can preach, but outside of that, I'm a very quiet individual. But it wasn't me they came for. They came because God was there. Now listen to this, and I'm going to try to close with this. Church is about God's presence.
Yes. Yes.
What are you offering people? You could stand at the door on Sunday morning and offer $100 bills to everybody come in. You'd fill your church up. But when you run out of $100 bills, they're gone. You see, if God is here, and He can use the people in this church to minister to people, you know what He's going to do? He's going to bring people that need to be ministered to. It's that simple. Now, let me say that again. If God is here, if you will let God be here, well, of course you'll let God be here. No, you don't just let, you have to invite Him. How do you invite Him? Well, like John Kilpatrick did. You begin to pray. Let me tell you another thing about John Kilpatrick. John Kilpatrick said the Lord spoke to him one of these times while he's praying. And the Lord said to him, "John, you're preaching too much." And he thought, well, that can't be God. I mean, when I preach, all of heaven stops and listens, right? So John prayed about that for a while, and he thought, Lord, what do you want me to do if I'm not preaching? What do you want? He said, I want you to open your church up on Sunday night for a prayer meeting. So John said, he told the people, we're not going to be preaching on the Sunday night. We're just going to invite you to come in as families, just come in at, between these hours. He put these banners up around the wall. He said, you go around and pray. They were praying for the church. They were praying for pastors. They were praying for the community. They were praying for schools. They were praying for the police department. They were praying for the school board. They were praying for students. They were praying for the fire department. They were praying for all these different things. They were praying for this. They were taking responsibility. This went on for about 2 years. And on Father's Day, in the mid-1990s, somewhere around 1995, I don't know exactly what it was, he had invited this evangelist to come in, and the Holy Spirit fell that Sunday morning, and millions of people came to that church from all parts of the world, standing in line 4, 5, and 6 hours a day in the heat of Florida, trying to get into a building where the presence of God was. You will not be able to get the people in this building. You will have people standing outside wanting to get a seat. You will have people complaining and parking somewhere else and walking if they have to. You will have people lined up. If you will just come together and begin to say, God, we want you here more than anything in the world. What does our church have to do, Lord, to fulfill your dream? What does our church have to do to fulfill your vision?
Amen.
How can we accomplish that, Lord? What's our part of the Great Commission? Go into all the world, preach the gospel, teach them, baptize them, send them out. That's what it's about. That's what it's about. Gentlemen, I'm going to tell you, the women are not without their responsibility. But women, when you stand behind your husband, that's a praying man. Everything is going to be redone. Everything in your relationship is going to change. Everything in your relationship. You see, when I went to this church, 4 people, my first prayer meeting that I started was 2 people. We would pray. And then after that was over, we would talk and say, this is what I think the Lord wants us to do. This is what I think the Lord wants us to do. The next thing is she started a prayer meeting on Tuesday morning. 50% of our congregation came out. 2 of the ladies came. The other 2 was working. I'll never forget the church, the overseer that took the vote the night that I was voted in as pastor. He said to me, he said, you had 100% of the vote. I said, how many was there? He said, 2. I was excited about 100%, but 2. But it doesn't matter where you start. But it does matter that you start. It does matter that you start. You say, but I've been here forever. Okay. And what have you done? I have sensed love in this church. You have been kind to me. Love is a sign of God's presence. I don't mean to be harsh. Please don't interpret that. But most of the reason that many of our churches don't have vision, most of the reason that God's not present in our churches, people don't come to it. And I'm giving you the key. Bring bread and some of these men started, I just preached that spot. Started getting together and praying. It doesn't matter if the pastor is here. It doesn't matter how many of you show up or who you don't. But when they begin to get together and to seek God and cry out to God for direction in this church. When Don begins to get sleepless at night and he can't go to sleep and he gets up and he just goes over here and lays on the floor before God, begging God for direction for this church and how they can reach the people. When the people become the absolute number one focus of this church, not the people that are sitting here service after service, but the people out here that don't know Jesus Christ, when that becomes the number one focus of this church, you will have everything that you need to minister to them. You see, my God is not short. His hand is not short that he can't provide. He is not, he doesn't get much. He looks at the parking lot and he says, when are you going to ask me to do something about it? When are you going to ask me? We had 28 parking spaces in that little church. And then we started parking on the grass.
On the grass. Mm-hmm.
And then we started parking behind the parsonage in the backyard. You could probably put another 15 cars there. And that was pretty cool for a while. And then we started parking in the front of the parsonage. And then we started parking along the street. And then we had neighbors complaining. You're going to get